Hello and welcome to Man Plays Game. Team Ladybug just finished Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth, and I am happy to say I finished it. This game was the subject of my first ever review, so it seems fitting for it to be the subject of my first follow-up review. All the things I discussed in my initial review are still relevant, except for my comments about the story being weak. I was wrong. The story has a satisfying ending. After the game's 6 stages, I could appreciate what Team Ladybug did with the Lotus War IP. It wasn't a terribly involved plot, but had heart, and as the game went on, there were some tasteful homages to Lotus lore. Other facets of the game were expanded upon in the many updates since the first version came out about a year ago, and I'm happy to say almost all were improvements. The standard monsters run a wide variety in difficulty, and some are great and unique, while some just wait to be killed. While the spirit system helps keep things interesting from one room to another, there is the odd hallway where you can get by just by mashing attack and walking forward, or gliding over everything. There are more sophisticated rooms where running in is a sure way to be killed. Team Ladybug added a stun mechanic, and if you take too many hits too quickly, you get staggered for what seems like an eternity. This is a great addition to combat because it trains the player to be more patient with enemies, even though you have a ridiculous weapon that does ridiculous damage. A weapon like the Hollow Sword. It has reach, is a top dealer mid-game, and is just fast enough to be used as a main weapon. There are other unique weapons added to the arsenal as well. Now you get boomerangs, shurikens, and chakrams. I tried to use as many different weapons as possible, but there were clear choices at certain points of the game, so I tended to favor the boomerang and Hollow Sword after I got them. It would seem a lot of the other weapons you get are just there to be sold or used as a handicap if you're trying to up the difficulty. I died enough as it was, wielding the most powerful gear, so I just kept my OP weapons, thank you very much. Speaking of selling, the weapon shop was a great place to pick up new and improved weapons for each area. I would always pick up a new sword, but I never had to buy a bow. I was able to stumble upon a bunch of different bows in the wild. Bows that had tricks to it, like shooting multiple arrows, or even a bow that steals HP. That bow definitely helped me out in some of the boss fights. The boss fights were hit or miss. Some were fantastic, but I found all of the dragon fights to be overly simple. Perhaps having such a large target was the issue, but some of the fights I didn't even have to move that much. The battles with humanoid characters brought a lot of variety in how they utilize the spirit system, especially near the end of the game. The screen becomes filled with flashing distractions and waves of dangerous energy. It was around this part of the game that showed me how much like a shooter this game could be. The spirit system is still that wonderful system that merges bullet hell shoot-em-ups like Ikaruga into the Metroidvania genre. I am still impressed at how seamless it is. There are some white-knuckled boss fights that have just as much pressure as an arcade shooter. Again, it was fantastic. Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth has hit that magic sweet spot of older Metroidvanias mixed with something new. Lots of games are doing this now, and I'm talking about this one because it achieved its vision so completely. It is such a simple game that has laser focus and keeps the pacing very brisk. However, if you do need a break from the dungeon crawling, Team Ladybug did add 2 new minigames. There's a gambling game featuring woodchucks so you can get rich and buy better weapons, and an archery game where you can win King Cashu's bow if you get an almost perfect score. These aren't super in-depth or integral to the main game, they are simply little distractions that you can spend your time in. The gambling game is based on dice rolls, so if you know how odds work, you should do fine. The target practice game has a cool layout, and getting ricochet shots and multiple targets in one shot make you feel like Robin Hood. Like a Metroid game, Deedlit has hidden areas scattered throughout the world with HP and MP boosts, special weapons, and what I was hoping for, more spells. You do learn more spells, and can switch between them as freely as you can with weapons. There's a good amount of variety in the spells too, but most could be considered homing attacks or area attacks, not unlike a super move or a bomb in a shoot-em-up. There are some pretty well hidden spells though, so be sure to test all the walls and ceilings for false tiles. Even with all the hidden areas, this game is brief. So brief that I could imagine this being a great game to have competitive speedruns. I was wanting more, and some of you out there agreed, that there needs to be some sort of post-game, whether that is a new game plus suggested by Video Game Caster, or as Vectus suggested, a Parn mode, where you can play the Labyrinth as the Knight of Lotos. The game does lend itself to a sequel though, and I hope Team Ladybug gets enough support from you all to make it happen. The pixel art continues to be impressive, the likeness of the characters is well captured and the environments were distinct and vibrant, and the music continues to be one of the strongest parts of the game. The tempo never let up, and some of the tracks really stood out while they all stood apart. A huge part of the identity of this game is the soundtrack, and it is better for it. The sound design is also excellent. The chimes when levels are reached or spells changed felt familiar. And there is the awesome addition of an announcer that lets you know when you reach level 3, which I feel is a nod to arcade-style games. All in all, I feel my patience was rewarded with more of the same goodness I played almost a year ago. Great pacing, tight controls, a unique twist in gameplay, and a stellar soundtrack makes Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth worthy of a 4 out of 5. Meaning, if you like action games, this one is unique enough to satisfy you, even if you aren't a Metroidvania fanatic. And if you are, spend the $20 and spend a day crushing this awesome game. Tell me about the things you think. Tell me in the comments. Thanks for watching, and take care.